And just one comment, if everybody could silence their phones. I have to silence mine. I remembered. Thank you. Okay, where were we? Next is, may we please have roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Adam,
Here.
Commissioner Acosta-Gavon, Vice Chair Twining,
Here.
Chair Pellman,
Here?
Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Here.
and Commissioner Wood.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this point, now it's time for public comments for items that are not on the agenda this evening. And I would like to ask if there's any public comments.
We do have one public comment. It's Ryan Messick.
Okay. Mr. Messick, can you please come down to the podium and... Either one.
What are my size? How much time do I have? 2 minutes, 1 minute? 3 minutes, okay. Cool. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys' attendance today. I'll take it back to December around Christmas time. I have a property up on right above Costa Mesa in South Coast Springs is what the community's called. It's on Bear Street. It's across the street from South Coast Plaza. I own a condo there, but I don't own the property. It was owned by the Bear family at one time. I'm not sure who owns it at this time, but since then, my neighbor, a young lady named Laura, she said she's great. She's a descendant from the Talbert and Ward family. She told us, me and my wife, that her family was going to be moving into town and going into business in Huntington Beach. I am aware of the Talbert and Ward Corporation, and I do know that they are in town and they're setting up business and they're buying and selling properties all over town. They're selling a church right now that's supposed to be in litigation. I saw it on their website the other day. It's on the market for $28 million. I know they have lots of connections like the Irvine families, because the pioneers from out here, when they had their farms and they donate the land and the city was built and all that, I understand the history of the city, right? These are the grandkids. You know, they had nothing to do with that. They've been lying in wait. And I know they said they were coming into town, and she had told me that she has a huge family with a bunch of cousins, and that instead of selling all these properties that they were coming into possession of, they were going into business. And since that has happened, I've lost my wife, my 3 kids, and I have 0 contact with them, right? And what I've come to find out is that these people, these families, these organizations have nonprofits and churches, and they have this huge family and this huge network. It's almost a mafia. And they're interwebbed and interconnected with all kinds of people in this government, with this board. And there's some serious issues going on. My family is being held hostage by these people. This city is being abused by this family. They have come in here like a mafia, and the citizens are running up and down doing their bidding in fear. I have serious concerns with what's going on in here. My civil rights have been completely abused.
Mr. Messing?
Yes, ma'am.
Your time is up.
Okay. You guys do know what civil rights are? Okay. You do take an oath to sit in that seat to protect your community.
Thank you, Mr. Messing.
These men are operating out of the property you guys have down there by Tank Farm.
Okay.
They're coming out of that
Can-
storage unit with the blue doors.
Can I please ask you to
Yes, ma'am.
end it?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just want to let you know I'm holding everyone accountable that plays a part in this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public speakers?
There are no other speakers signed up.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. And next, we have minutes on the consent calendar this evening. Are there any edits from commissioners?
Chair Pellman, I should just note too that Commissioner Wood was absent that night, so he should abstain from this vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So hearing no commissioners wanting to speak, I'll ask for a motion.
I can make the motion. So I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 23-556, approve Planning Commission meeting minutes dated June 13, 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who seconded? I actually hit my button there. Okay. Okay. Did you get who seconded? Okay. And Mr. Coit? Oh, there it goes. Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay. Call for the vote? Are you going to call for the vote, or do you want me to call for the vote?
Please vote. We have all ayes. Commissioner Acosta-Galvin is absent. Commissioner Wood is abstaining. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Next, we have a non-public hearing item. It is administrative permit number 22-016, Legacy Living LLC Sober Living Reasonable Accommodation. And I believe staff would like to do a presentation.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Senior Planner Hayden Beckman. He will be leading the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and good evening, Honorable Chair and fellow commissioners. Tonight is the administrative hearing for Administrative Permit 22016. This is a request where the applicant is seeking reasonable accommodation request to obtain approval for the operation of a sober living home on a property that's located 288 linear feet from an existing residential care facility, which does not comply with the required 1,000-foot buffer between group homes, including sober living homes or licensed residential care facilities. The subject property is located at 501 16th Street. This is the northwest corner of 16th Street at Pecan. And in this exhibit, and I apologize if it's a little small, but effectively this is the linear measurement exhibit between the subject property located at the lower left and the nearest adjacent residential care facility, which is just north, again, 288 linear feet. Providing a little bit of background, in October 2020, the City Council adopted group home regulations, and the regulations are set forth in the Huntington Beach Zoning and Subdivision Section 230.28 group homes. These regulations require ministerial approval of any group home or sober living home that serves 6 or fewer persons via a special use permit. As I mentioned before, the additional requirement is a 1,000 linear foot buffer between each sober living home or residential care facility. In September of 2022, the applicant filed a request for special use permit number 22009 on the subject property, and as I mentioned, this does not comply with the 1,000-foot buffer. As such, the application is not eligible for ministerial approval. It was deemed void, and no further action has been taken. Subsequent to this, the applicant filed the subject request for reasonable accommodation. Current code provides an administrative process to request reasonable accommodation for applicants with disabilities that seek relief from strict application of the regulations of 230.28. Such applicants may request reasonable accommodation by setting forth specific reasons as to why accommodation over and above current regulation is necessary, and that is pursuant to state and federal law in accordance with the Huntington Beach Municipal Code, Section 17.77. These requests are processed as administrative permits to be reviewed and acted upon by the Director of Community Development. And Chapter 17.77 also provides procedures and necessary findings for approval of requests for reasonable accommodation. There are 5 required findings when considering action on a reasonable accommodation request. Staff has identified in the attachment number 1 of the staff report that of the 4 applicable findings, the subject request does not meet 2. And as such, we're recommending that the Planning Commission deny administrative permit number 22016. And that concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions you may have.
Chair, really quickly too, I do want to note that we received 1 late communication. I think all of the Planning Commission received it. It was a letter from the applicant's representative.
Yes, I received it. It was 116 pages. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So this time, commissioners, do you have any question of staff at this time? And I've got to view speakers. Yes, Commissioner Adam.
Yeah, can you put that slide back up for the 2 out of 4 reasons?
Certainly. Would you like me to, I can just read through them for clarification?
No, just looking
Oh,
at
okay.
number 2. I'm familiar with number 4, but I just wanted to.
I think for the purposes of the record, if you don't mind, Commissioner, I will read it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay,
please.
so finding number 2 is the statement where the request for reasonable accommodation is necessary to make specific housing available to an individual protected under the Act. And in response, this is a bit of a more concise response than what you would find in our published findings, but the response is that the subject request is not necessary to make such housing available to disabled individuals. The city has to date issued 6 special use permits that comply with the regulations, and we've also verified that multiple sober living beds are currently available.
Thank you.
Sir.
Any other commissioners? Okay. So this is a non-public hearing item. So if commissioners need to deliberate, any comments from commissioners? Okay, hearing no discussion or deliberation. Do we have a motion on this item? Okay, I will make a motion then. Oh, you just pushed it?
Be working.
I only have Commissioner Adams up here for already done. Yeah, okay. So I don't think my electronics are working. Yeah, okay. But just letting you know. So we'll do this old school. Okay. So do you want to make the motion?
Would you like? Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to uphold the rejection of the application for reasonable accommodation.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion's been made by Commissioner Twining and seconded by Commissioner Kennedy. It's time to vote. All those who yes.
Can we just make sure what we're voting on?
Yes.
Is a yes is
A
supporting?
yes is voting to deny.
Thank you.
We have 6 ayes. Commissioner Acosta-Galvon is absent. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay.
The decision by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 calendar days. An appeal must include reasons for such an appeal and a required fee, and shall be filed with the City of Huntington Beach City Clerk's Office within the 10-day appeal period.
Next, we have a non-public hearing item, It's administrative permit number 22-015, Legacy Living LLC, Sober Living, Reasonable Accommodation. And I believe staff has a presentation, correct? Yes.
I do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The second item before the commission tonight is a similar request. This is for administrative permit number 23015. It is also a request for reasonable accommodation. In this particular case, the application is for the operator of a sober living home on a property that's located approximately 60 linear feet from an adjacent residential care facility. As such, the application does not comply with the minimum 1,000-foot buffer between group homes, including sober living homes, and residential care facilities. The subject property is located at 9452 Castlegate Drive. This is on the south side of Castlegate Drive, west of Bouchard Street. In this exhibit, staff has identified the subject property in red, and as you can see, it is just one parcel down from an existing elderly group home. Similar background, and again, for the purposes of the record, I'll just briefly run through this. I know it's repetitive, but in October 2020, the City Council did adopt group home regulations, and those are established in the Huntington Beach Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance, Section 230.28. It requires ministerial approval of any group home or sober living home that serves 6 or fewer persons via a special use permit. As I mentioned before, there is a 1,000-foot linear foot buffer requirement between each sober living home or residential care facility. In November 2022, the applicant filed a request for special use permit 220112 upon the subject property, and it did not comply with the 1,000-foot buffer, which means that the application was not eligible for ministerial approval. That application was then deemed void and no further action was taken. Subsequently, the subject request before the commission was filed for reasonable accommodation, and this request is for applicants that have disabilities that seek relief from strict application of the regulations of the Huntington Beach Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance. The reasonable accommodation requests are processed as administrative permits and are reviewed and acted upon by the Director of Community Development. The procedures and necessary findings for reasonable accommodations are identified in the Huntington Beach Municipal Code, Chapter 17.77. And further, the Huntington Beach Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance 202.10 enables the Director of Community Development to refer matters involving development issues to the Planning Commission, and that explains why the item is before the Commission tonight. There are 5 required findings when considering action on reasonable accommodation requests, and of those 5, 4 are applicable in this case. I'll just mention that the 5th finding is not applicable because it relates to sites that are within the coastal zone, and the subject property is not in the coastal zone. The findings that cannot be met in this particular case are findings number 2 and 4. Finding number 2, the request for reasonable accommodation is necessary to make specific housing available to an individual protected under the acts. Staff is recommending that this finding cannot be met because the request is not necessary to make housing available to disabled individuals. The city has issued to date 6 special use permits that do comply with the regulations, and we've also verified that multiple beds for sober living are currently available. Finding number 4 is that the requested reasonable accommodation will not require a fundamental alteration to the nature of a city program or to the city's zoning or building laws, policies, or procedures. And staff's recommended finding in this case is that the request would require an alteration to the city's zoning code in that the subject property is within, is within 60 linear feet of a elderly group home that does not comply with the 1,000-foot minimum buffer. As such, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission deny administrative permit number 22015 as it does not meet 2 of the 4 applicable findings. And that concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioners, do you have any questions?
Just a brief question for legal. If the applicant or anybody in the future wants to change the code, they would have to come to Planning Commission, right, and apply to do that, or just so the public knows, what we're talking about in general.
Yeah, they could come to council or Planning Commission and argue that the code should be changed via ordinance, and then council can consider it and prepare a new ordinance and pass or deny it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay, hearing no other commissioners, do you, no more deliberation? Okay. I would like to ask if we have a motion on this item. Okay, I will make a motion. Hold on.
Could we share some thoughts here or no?
You're able to make comments and
Okay.
just deliberate, yes.
Yeah, just so people watching on TV or even residents are aware of what we're even talking about, or the reason why we're voting no, I just wanted to, sort of share the city's code 230.28 group homes and 17.77 for reasonable accommodation is very clear, and staff's recommendation to deny doesn't mean the applicant can't function within our city limits. I think staff has done an amazing job to pinpoint the reasons as to why we're denying, and so that's why I'm voting to deny. And I think just going back to the code is very clear, and so just so the public knows as the reason as to why we're denying is it all has to do with our city laws and our code and what it says, and all we're doing is we're following that. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, and anybody else? And if nobody else, I'd like to ask if we have a motion, and if I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to deny administrative permit number 22-015 with suggested findings for denial. Do I have a second? A second. Commissioner Twining made the second. Any questions? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor? No? Abstain? Okay.
We have 6 ayes. Motion carries. Commissioner Acosta-Galvan is absent.
Thank you very much. Mr. Quaid, thank you.
The decision by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 calendar days. An appeal must include reasons for such an appeal, any required fee, and shall be filed with the City of Huntington Beach City Clerk's Office within the 10-day appeal period.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Next on the agenda are planning items. Can staff please provide a report?
Yes, I did want to make the commission aware that we do have 2 items anticipated for the next meeting, which will be on the 25th, so we hope to see you all there.
Thank you.
I also just want to apologize for the technology issues. I think the commission understands they're just somewhat ongoing. But just as a sort of best practice, it's really helpful whether you're going to use the electronic motion for first and second, if you could concurrently just say it out loud as well. It helps for people watching online
Sure.
as well. So,
I agree. Okay.
and that's all I had tonight.
Thank you. Okay. Before we close for the evening, planning commissioners, do you have any comments to provide? And we'll start at the end with Commissioner Rodriguez.
No comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Wood?
No comments.
Commissioner Adam?
Boy, switched. I like that order there. I hope everybody.
Switching it up.
I hope everybody had a good 4th of July, and maybe there'll be some fireworks Thursday at the Coastal Commission hearing. The Magnolia Tank Farm project goes in front of the commission, so it'll be interesting to see how that fares with respect to residential and the coastal zone. Other than that, no further comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Adam. Commissioner Kennedy?
No comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Twining?
I just want to say, just following up on what Commissioner Ian said, I will be there to witness the fireworks on Thursday at 9 a.m. at Newport Beach City Hall. Other than that, have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, this is the last item on the agenda, and we are hereby adjourned to the next Planning Commission meeting on Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, and we're done. Thank you, staff. Thank you very much. And thank commissioners. You guys are awesome. Thank you.